Hi, I'm Rachel. I'm going to show you how I made this effect. This is my custom effect talks. I called it my Kaleidoscoper. You can plug in whatever image movie you want and you get a kaleidoscope effect out. There's a bunch of different presets and parameters that I've created. The purpose of this is to be put into a live show file, so I have my resolution that affects everything in there. I have the scale of the original image that can get affected, there, like that. I have translate, so when you move the original image left and right, up and down, creates a different effect. The speed that it rotates, which is my favorite part. I don't know what this little artifact off to the side is. The number of segments, which needs to be an integer. So here there's 2, 4, and hypothetically you can go as high as you want. Afterwards, I've got some post-transform options, scale, which goes really little, really big, and a feedback that's optional. That looks pretty cool. You can't quite... Oh, neat. Yeah, so you can get a lot of different effects from this one component. So I'm going to show you how I built this from scratch. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is you need an input, a central part, and the out. So I'll start with a movie file in, connect that to a null, and an out. The banana's not great for this. You can kind of use anything, but you want something with a full image so that when you have the slices, you don't get any with just a clear background. So let's see, I'll pick something else this time. Maybe this guy. Cute. And it's too big because I'm just using the educational license on this device. Okay, I'm going to select the null in the middle, right click outside of that, and click collapse selected. Now I have something that resembles this upper one. I'm going to call it my Kaleidoscoper and change the color to be blue, just based off the system that I've created. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create my custom parameters so that I don't have to go out and do it later. I'm going to right click, customize component. Okay, so the first one is the resolution. I'm not going to create a new page, it'll just automatically create one. So I'll do res, I want them to be integers, and I want 2 for x and y. There we go. I want headings just for organization's sake. So I'll add one that's called pre-transform header. There we go. And in pre-transform, I have scale, which I'll make a float because I want to have decimals. I have translate, which I want to be 2 floats for x and y. And then I want image rotate speed. And I like keeping this one as a float between 0 and 1, just so you can see from the outside, and then editing the actual values inside because it's pretty arbitrary. Scale, I'd like it to go from 0. What was it? 0.05 to 3. I like those values. So default will have as 1, minimum 0.05, maximum as 3. Translate, 0 is a good default, don't want to change anything. Image rotate speed, I'll keep also at 0. Okay, what's next? Next, replicator. So this is where you're going to be able to put in how many segments you want your kaleidoscope to have. So integer, because we need whole number values. Move that all the way to the bottom though. Oh, wait, oops. Need the header. Replicator header. Excellent. Cool. And then segments, that's the one that's an integer. Enter. Cool. Segments, I want them default to be 6. It could be whatever, but I don't want you to be able to do less than 2. And 10 is a good number, although you could hypothetically go as high as you want. Okay, what am I missing? Post transform. Okay. These will be the effects that happen after the replication. So header, cool. We have scale. I'm gonna use the exact same copy paste as the other one, but I don't want the label to, cool. And then feedback as just a toggle that can go on and off. So these aren't connected to anything right now, obviously. Cool, the only difference between this one and this one is that I have created sections here. You can see those lines just for organization's sake. So I'll find where my headers are and just click section just to segment it off so it looks cuter. Cool. Okay. And that's all. So I'm going to set my resolution to 1280 by 720. And then I'm ready to start. The way that I like using parameters in like bigger systems is very specific. I'll show you within the original effect. So I use the parameter chop. And I have everything. I select what I need for the one specific task I'm doing. And if I want it to have a bit of a flow between values when you change it on the upper levels, I'll add a filter. So I go parameter, filter, null, and then put that into my system. But I'll show you that in a moment. Okay, cool. Let's go into our Kaleidoscoper. So this is what it looks like inside right now. There's not very much. The first thing we're going to do is the pre-transform stuff. So I'm going to add a null here right at the beginning, and then a transform. And I'm going to rename this to transform pre because we're going to use the numbers later in the replicator. Okay, so if I click here and go to parameters, in the pre-transform we have scale, translate, and rotate speed. So let's add a parameter chop. And I want translate 1, translate 2, and the original scale. So I'm going to show you what I was talking about before, what I like to do with parameters like this. So I have the values, and I want it so that, oops, when I change this, it doesn't just change kind of roughly like that. I want it to flow. So I'm going to add a filter to this, and then a null. Cool. Parameter, filter, null. I do this for basically everything. So now, check that out. It's a lot more fluid. So when I go to my transform, I activate this viewer and I drag these into these. I'll be able to change the values. So scale, I'm going to drag right onto the name of this so that it affects both of these when I click chop reference. Okay, so if we look at this, scale, translate, very nice. And so that we don't get the invisible background, I'm going to go to tile and I want mirror. Perfect. Excellent. Let's just reset that back to 1. Okay, so I usually color the first one of this bright green to show it's a parameter, and then I right click on these, press dock to, and dock it to that parameter. So now this lives right next to here, and it's all concise and neat. So the last one we have to do is image rotate speed, and there's a reason I didn't have it the same as here, because it needs a little bit of extra attention. So I'm going to have another parameter chop. I like to separate them. Go to image rotate speed, bright green, and now I'm going to attach that to a speed chop. So right now it's at 0 because the rotate speed's at 0. But so now, increasing this will make that go faster. I'm going to add a null here. And then make this active. Oops. Oh yeah. And put it into the rotate. But it goes really, really slow, even when this is like as fast as possible. So right before speed, I'm going to put a math. I'm going to multiply it by, I don't know, 20. That's just what I used last time. It could be whatever. So that means that when it's at 1, which is the fastest speed, it goes this fast. And that's perfect for our purposes. So I'm going to do the same thing that I did up here to make it neater. And I'm going to dock all of these in this chain to the parameter. And then put this neatly over here. Okay. So now I have all of my pre-transform stuff ready to go. Let's stop this from rotating because it's annoying. Cool. Okay, the next thing is creating a slice of this. What we're going to do is we're going to make a slice that's kind of like a segment of a circle. We're going to mirror that slice, and then we're going to repeat that thing going all the way around. So I need a null, and I need a circle. Excellent. But I want the circle to cut out. Oh, no. I am only plugging this in because I want it to be the resolution. Perfect. Okay. So we need a small amount of this, and it's going to depend on how many segments there are. But first, let's composite this. So a comp and a circle, and it's automatically on multiply. So whatever shape this is, cuts this out. Excellent. Okay, so now let's use the segments to get the angle for here. This is how I did it. Okay. So first, you want a constant that is 360 degrees. So this is all of the angles in the full circle. Okay. And then we want the parameter that gives us how many segments there are. Okay, so we have a full circle is 360 and we have 6 segments. Let's see. So we want to divide 360 by how many segments there are to see how many degrees fit in one segment. So we need a divide. Oops, not a divide. Sorry. A math. And we're going to combine the chops with divide. Cool. So each one's going to be 60. But there's a bit of an error here. If each of these is 60 degrees, then when we have the mirror, it doubles that. So it would actually be 120 degrees. And if we have 6 segments of 120, that comes out to be way more than 360. So we're going to need to add another math. And we're going to need to divide this by 2. So I go into the multi-add and I multiply it by 0.5. Sometimes I like to multiply it by half, but it's, the same exact thing. So now I know that each of these little segments has to be 30 degrees. I'm going to add a null, and I'm going to call this slice angle. Excellent. Yeah, that's perfect. So now, okay, we're in our circle. And in the circle top, it has arc angles. So going from 0 to 0, it's going 0 all the way to 360, which brings it back to the start. If you had it from 0 to, 270, it's going to go 3/4. See? 0 to 180, it's going to go halfway. So we want it to go from 0 to 30. So I'm going to make this active, drag this into here. Excellent. Check this out. Okay, so if we had one segment, then the whole thing is going to be half of the circle. Because remember, when we mirror it, it doubles. If there are 2 segments total, perfect. This might be a bit clearer to illustrate when I actually add the mirror. There we go. Okay, cool. So 2 segments, there's 1 segment. Let's say we want 10 segments. It's going to be this multiplied by 10. Let's say we want 5 segments. Cool. Now you can kind of see what I did with the scale and the translate here. I love this already. And when it rotates, the mirror makes it have a really cool effect. Okay, neat. Okay, the next thing I'm gonna do is just add another null here that's a different channel than the other one, because we're gonna need this to tell us what degree we want to rotate this every time we have a replicant. That's a little bit complicated, but so this angle here that's created is 2 times our slice angle. So every time we have a new replicant, we want it to go 2 times the slice. So we don't need to divide it. So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to call it turn angle. So we have our turn angle, and we have our slice angle. Cool. I don't think there's much else we need for our pre-transform. Okay, we have our mirror. We have our... Okay, cool. Let's end this. Null. Okay, I want this to go all the way out because I don't want our kaleidoscope effect to end there. So I think I'll take... Let's see. Where did I have that transform? Oh, here. Okay, cool. I want this to be a little bit separated. So instead of putting this right into our transform, I'm going to grab a select just to get a little bit of, separation, and then put that into a transform. Okay, tile, I would like it to mirror. Let's make the whole circle bigger. Radius is 0.4. Cool. Nice. I've increased the size of my original circle, so now instead of having like a little pie shape with the end around it, it goes all the way out to the outside. Now I have this transform, and I want to create multiple versions, multiple replicants of this transform. So when I rotate it, I can get the entire kaleidoscope. How we're going to do that is with a replicator. Okay, so tab, go to comp, and you need a replicator. You're going to drag this transform as the master operator, but first I'd like to make an edit to this transform. The number of segments is going to give us how many replicants that we need. So instead of replication method by table, we want it by number, and we want to activate this and drag the number of segments into number of replicants. Okay, excellent. I want the layout of this to be vertical, and I want this to rotate based off of which segment it is. So, okay, how I do that is I want this to rotate by the turn angle multiplied by 1 less than what this is. So I dragged our turn angle into the rotate, but I want to multiply that, create brackets, by me dot digits minus 1. So for this initial transform, we get a rotate of 0 because it's the amount of turns times 0. For the next transform, we get 72, which is our angle because it's times 1. For the next one, we get 144 because it's times 2, and so on and so forth. Okay, cool. So now that we have that, we can drag our transform as the master operator of our replicator. Okay, so they get created over here, which is really annoying. So I'm going to change the layout origin to make it a little bit further down. So the X over there and the Y over there. Okay, cool. So we have 5 replicants. It made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Excellent. And they turn going all the way around. So if I make a comp and I attach all of these going in there, nothing happened at first because I need to change the blend mode. Let's do over. Beautiful. It all goes together. That is so excellent. Oops. That is so excellent. So let's start the effect, and that is gorgeous. But it gets all messed up if you change the number of segments. Suddenly, if there's 6, we don't actually get all 6, and it gets all messed up. We don't want that. So I'm going to show you how we can change that so it automatically updates with a few different parts. So first I'm going to go into our replicator callbacks, and I'm going to add a line of code here on replicate. So I'm going to press enter under all of these, and I'm going to type this. Okay, it goes C dot output connectors, and then in square brackets 0 dot connect, and then in round brackets op comp 1. Perfect. So what that'll do is every time it creates new operators, it'll put all of them into that comp 1. So let's make it 6. Oops, 6 of these. Oh, comp 1 is up there. Okay. So instead of comp 1, let's change it to comp 2. Excellent. Okay, cool. Now if there's 6, it'll automatically connect to comp 2. Gorgeous. But everything's disappeared because this one has connected. Excellent. Okay, cool. This extra thing going on, I don't really like it. Where does that come from? I believe it's the tile being mirror. So let's make it 0 and recreate everything just to see if that fixes it. Oh, okay. So I get this issue, which I got last time, where this select keeps creating new connections going to this comp, which is really not what I want. Everything else works, but I don't like that. So what I'm gonna do is I want every time the amount of segments changes, I would like to recreate all the operators, but first I want to remove all of the extra connections from this comp. Okay, so I have segments. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a null, and then I'm going to add a chop execute. I want it to be when the value is changed, then this stuff happens. So I need the value change to be on. I can go into here and I can delete everything except for this last function. Goodbye. That's cuter. Okay, cool. Okay, so there's 2 things that need to happen. One of them is pulsing that recreate operators. So this is op, and then it's replicator 1. That's what we're targeting. Dot par dot recreate all dot pulse. So that goes to replicator 1, and it pulses this button to recreate all operators. Beautiful. Okay, but before we do that, we want to remove all the other connections. So we need to know how many connections are going into this comp. The way to do that is with the following code. So we want the number of connected and that's going to be the length op comp2 dot inputs. Okay, make sure everything's matching there. Excellent. And then we need a for loop to go through each of those and remove it. So for I in range num connected, we want the operator comp2 dot input connectors, and then in square brackets the number of connected minus 1 minus I, oops, dot disconnect. Let's just make sure I have all of the right brackets. Okay, I need that after. Okay, perfect. I think that's correct. So here, I'll linger on this just for a moment so you can see it. So I have the number of inputs, and then for each number in that range, I want to look at the operator. I want to disconnect each one. Okay. I know that's kind of vague, but just copy this code and it'll work out. Okay, let's see if it works. So I'll change the number of segments and, beautiful. It doesn't connect all those anymore. It automatically replicates the amount that I need it, and it automatically connects it to this comp. However, we get this kind of empty space here, which I don't like very much. And that's as a result of not having that extend. So what if I extend hold instead of extend mirror? So in order to get it to regenerate, I can change the number of segments. 2 works. That gives us that, which is interesting. Here, I'll make it big so you can see it. That's what hold looks like. What about repeat? Okay. Okay, that's cool. Here, you can see, so far repeat seems like the best. That's really busy. I'm gonna remove that. Awesome, that looks pretty neat. Okay, cool. Now it all connects. All right, now all that's left to do is all of the post-processing. At this point, it's kind of nice to go in and organize everything. You don't need to, but I like to for visual sake. So I'm gonna take all of this stuff and I'm holding Alt on my PC and dragging, and I'm gonna call this segment math or angle math or whatever, and I make the color green. Here, I'm gonna select all of this. I'm gonna call it pre-processing. Make it purple because it's mostly tops. These we'll deal with later. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Okay, here is our master operator, which I'll leave over there because it makes sense visually, but over here in the same color, replicator. Okay, cool. These are going to change depending on how many there are, so I'm not going to try to make a box around them or anything. Okay, cool. Okay, so now we have our component, and we just need to add the post-processing. We have our scale, and we have our feedback. So I'm going to add a null. I mean, I guess at this point, I can put this into the background. Oh, that's looking great so far when I go up. So most of this is working. We need to add a translate. Okay, right click here, insert, transform. And I want this scale to affect this. So let's get another parameter, chop. I'm going to do the same thing that I did before. Select the one I want, just scale to, color it green, add a filter that I spell correctly. I'm going to make the filter width a lot bigger because it'll just take a little bit longer to kind of recalibrate, which stylistically I like. And then we're going to add a null. Click on transform, viewer active, and drag this to the scale. Gorgeous. I dock these to my parameter so that it looks simpler, and now it should work. Okay. Oh, beautiful. Oh, except when you make it small, it disappears. Don't like that. So tile, and let's see what's cuter. Mirror or repeat? Certainly mirror. Oh, gorgeous. Okay, now let's add our feedback loop. So I'm going to add a null here. And then I'm going to add a switch because I want to be able to attach that switch to this feedback. Okay, null. Let's add another one. I'll make the feedback loop up here. Move this over. Goodbye. I like when it reads left to right. So null, feedback. This is just a standard feedback loop. Let's add a blur and then a level. In between the blur and the level, I'm going to add a transform. I'll show you the effect of that in a second. After level, a comp, drag the null into the comp, drag the comp onto the feedback, and then the comp into the switch. Cool. Let's make this work. Okay. Add, that looks like that. Let's do over. I'm going to play with this a bit, make it work. So the level, you need to go into post and you need to decrease the opacity. So every time the feedback loop happens, it fades and fades and fades. So 0.8. Oh, beautiful. It's already working. So see how it's a little bit blurry? What if it's 0.99? It's a lot blurry. What if it's 0.1? You can barely see it. So let's make it 0.9. Cool, I like that. Okay, the blur I'm gonna leave because if you increase the blur too much, it decreases your frames per second. For transform, I like making it a little bit bigger. That might be too much. Oh, that's cool. And then I like to rotate it. Not that much. I mean, that's very interesting, but let's only rotate it just a little so that doesn't make me really dizzy. Okay. I think what I'll actually do is make it a little more transparent so it's a bit less dramatic. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, cool. So let's make this switch work so you can go back and forth using this. I'll create another parameter, which I will, once again, select the one that I want, add a filter, add a null, I'm just using Alt-N shortcut, and then drag that into my index. The reason I'm using a filter, even though it's just on and off, is because I want to blend between the inputs. So check it out. See? Cool. Wonderful. On, off. If it's in the wrong order, you can just move these around. Okay, let's make this green so I know. And then once again, dock. Dock. Yay, all right. I'm going to Alt and drag and make this post-processing. Make it purple. And I believe that is everything that I did. So now I have my gorgeous Kaleidoscoper number 2. And there's it with my feedback on. I can affect the scale of the whole thing and the scale of the initial image. I can make it rotate way faster, although, oh, not rotate at all. Sorry, I'm getting over a cold. Okay, 10 seconds. Wonderful. I can move it over. Oh, well, that makes it very dramatic. Let's move it back. Better. But so you can get very subtle changes in effects by moving it over little by little. Just because you're changing the part of the image that's actually segmented. Yeah, that's kind of it. You can plug in any image and get the same kind of thing out of it for unlimited effects. I hope you enjoyed.